Two baffling Australian mysteries, one historical and the other very recent, have kept forensic investigators busy and lately made progress. Russell Hill and Carol Clay. Hill and Clay, both in their 70s, were friends who shared an enjoyment of camping, both married to other partners. On March 20th, 2020, the pair disappeared from their campsite on Dry River Track, Wanangata, which had been well set up with a large tent, outdoor shower and table and chairs. As a former bush logger, Hill was well acquainted with the area and bush savvy. Friends say that Hill always looked after his gear and that it was out of character to abandon his well-equipped white Toyota Land Cruiser. Ominously, the campsite and camper utility had been burnt out and their mobile phones and Hill's drone had gone missing. An expensive new drone that he had been flying the week before. Police said it appeared that the pair had intended to return to the campsite as Clay's belongings were still in the car and food had been left there. Neither Hill nor Clay had accessed their phone or bank accounts since their disappearance, and police believed them to be deceased early in the investigation, despite a complete lack of clues or evidence. They were also investigating possible third-party involvement. Forensic examination by arson chemists of the burnt-out campsite was inconclusive, and at the last police search and sweep of the area, the trail had run cold. The terrain becomes frozen over in winter, which precluded further investigations at the time. Police speculated that there was a third party involved, another camper at the site with whom Hill may have had an argument, leading to a violent then fatal altercation. Key to their investigation were two sightings of a blue four-wheel drive in the area. Images of the vehicle captured by roadside cameras were released to the public and verified by witnesses. By the time police had identified the suspect, the car had been repainted beige. In November 2021, a 55-year-old pilot and frequent camper was apprehended while on a camping trip in another remote area in Victoria's high country. He was charged with 2 counts of homicide after days of questioning at Sale Police Station. Specialist police were involved in searching an area of remote bushland just over a week later and uncovered human remains. It took authorities 2.5 months to confirm that they were those of the missing couple. Hill's drone has never been found. Somerton Man. On December 1st, 1948, a man's body was found slumped against a wall on Somerton Beach in Adelaide. The man had fair hair and grey eyes, was clean-shaven and appeared to be about 40 years old. He was wearing a brown suit and there was a half-smoked cigarette on his lapel. The man was lying on his back with his legs crossed, looking up at the sky, and those who found him did not immediately realise that he was deceased. Unlike others sometimes discovered on the beach, he had not washed ashore, as his clothes, all of which had their labels removed, were dry. A contemporaneous witness and others since have suggested that he had been placed there. There was little to identify him except for some personal items: 2 combs, a box of matches, a used bus ticket to the location, an unused second-class train ticket, a pack of chewing gum and cigarettes. A post-mortem revealed that the man had a significantly enlarged spleen and internal bleeding in the stomach and liver, but the autopsy gave no indication of violence. The coroner's finding was that his death had resulted from an unknown poison. 1 month later, a suitcase containing dozens of items was uncovered in the cloakroom of the Adelaide railway station. Having been checked in the day before the Somerton Man was discovered, police suspected it had belonged to him. It contained clothing which, like what he was wearing, had had its labels removed, and various other items, which included scissors, a shaving brush, a knife in a sheath, and boot polish. A waxed thread not sold in Australia, which had also been used to repair the man's trousers, was also in the suitcase. The name Keane, written both with and without a second E, had been written on 3 items, but this clue led nowhere. Strangest of all was that 4 months after the man's discovery, a pathologist re-examining the body found a slip of paper in a concealed fob pocket, which read Tamim Shud. The words were found to have been torn from the last page of the poetry book, the Rubaiyat of Omar Khayyam, and when translated from Persian simply mean the end. That finding was enough for coroner Thomas Cleland to conclude that the man's death was not natural. After police appealed to the public for help finding the matching book, an anonymous businessman, later revealed as local chemist John Freeman, came forward to say that the book had been thrown through the back window of his unlocked car. The book revealed some final clues, a sequence of letters believed to be a code and 2 telephone numbers. While suggestions of spies and secret agents now surfaced, no cipher specialist has ever successfully cracked the code. One of the phone numbers was an unlisted one belonging to a nurse called Jessie Thompson, who lived close to where the Somerton man's body was found. When interviewed by police in July 1949, she told them that she had once owned a copy of the Rubaiyat of Ober Khayyam, but denied knowing the Somerton man. Police took her to view a plaster bust of the man's head and shoulders in the hope it would spark her memory, and later reported that she behaved strangely when she saw it, but never explained why. Jessie Thompson passed away in 2007, but rumours had swirled that her son Robin was the biological son of the unidentified man. Later genetic testing on the Somerton man's hair, found embedded in the plaster cast, indicated simply that the man's mother had European ancestry, but provided no further clues. Adelaide University Professor Derek Abbott has studied the case for more than 20 years and researched the connection between Robin Thompson and the Somerton man. Although Robin Thompson had died by then, Abbott located his daughter, Rachel Egan, who was living in Queensland. The two later married and now have 3 children. Abbott determined that a comparison of the DNA of his wife with that of the Somerton man, her potential grandfather, could prove whether or not Robin was the Somerton man's son, given the possibility that Mrs. Thompson had been in a relationship with the mystery man. Interestingly, Somerton man had been found to share extremely rare ear and dental characteristics and a possible dancing vocation with Robin Thompson. However, according to recent sources, the analysis of Rachel Egan's DNA has found links to the grandparents of Jessie Thompson's husband, making her not a descendant of Somerton man. In May 2021, Somerton man's complete remains were exhumed as part of a South Australian police initiative called Operation Persevere to investigate all unidentified human remains in the state. A complicating factor is that his body had been embalmed, a process whereby the embalming fluid used can actually break down DNA. Although the exhumation was completed over 12 months ago and an investigation into his DNA commenced immediately, no results have been made public. In 2013, Kate Thompson, Jessie Thompson's daughter, stated on the television program 60 Minutes that her mother knew who Somerton man was and had lied to police for the possible reason that both were Soviet spies. At the then start of the Cold War, South Australia, and specifically Woomera, the latest site of nuclear testing, had become a focal point in the arms race, and the Soviet Union had an extensive network of spies operating around the city of Adelaide. Kate became aware that her quite secretive mother understood spoken Russian, and she had also once told Kate that information about the Somerton man was known at a level higher than the local police force, that is, at a government level. An alternative view is that the Somerton man was amongst the scores of leading Nazi scientists and weapons technicians recruited and transferred to Australia by Britain after the Second World War. According to documents sourced by the Sydney Morning Herald, the British government wanted to both poach the experts and prevent Stalin's Soviet Union from kidnapping and utilising them. Either of these theories is supported by the removal and faking of all potential identification in Somerton man's possession. The more researchers have delved into the mystery of the Somerton man, the more complex the theories surrounding him seem to become. However, a new DNA analysis may have finally identified him 73 years later. Derek Abbott and forensic genealogist Colleen Fitzpatrick analysed the hairs caught in his death mask to finally name Somerton man as Carl or Charles Webb. The electrical engineer from Melbourne, Australia, was born in 1905 but had no record of death. Using the genealogical research base GEDmatch, Abbott and Fitzpatrick found a match to a distant cousin and constructed a family tree of over 4,000 people. Then, using archival records to find individuals whose biographies were similar to what was known about the Somerton man, they identified Webb. His naming explains some, but not all, of the mysteries surrounding him. Webb had a brother-in-law called Thomas Keane, from whom he had probably borrowed clothing, explaining the name tags. Webb's estranged wife had moved to South Australia, which may explain his travel to that state. The suspected code he had written down, speculation refuted by cryptography experts, probably stood for the names of horses he had bet on, according to Abbott. Despite convincing details of his now identification, the mystery of how and why Carl Webb died may still take years, with officials still yet to comment on the new findings.